Hello, my name is George Poirier, and we will be publishing a series of technology classes for Cal-Am's Lifestyle University. These presentations will be about 15 minutes in length and designed to cover a range of beginner technology subjects. This session is the first in a series of 3 covering the introduction to the iPhone. The agenda for today is, as you can see, the fact is you made a good decision when you chose an iPhone. The iPhone is an awesome device that Apple has treated very well, which we'll talk about. Next, we'll talk about information about your iPhone, what level of iOS you're at, etc. And from that, we'll go into settings and a thing called About. We'll look at some key changes that occurred with iOS 14. iOS 14 is a level of the operating system that exists today, and we'll be talking about some of the changes that occurred when that happened. We'll discuss navigation at length and show you how to get around the phone. There's some new things that have happened with the navigation, and we'll get a smattering of those as well. We'll be looking at customizing the iPhone screen, moving apps around, moving to a different screen, etc. The dock is that area at the very bottom of the screen where you see those 4 icons. Those 4 icons can be anything you want to choose, and they should be the ones that you use most often. Additionally, we'll be going into the control center, and in the control center there are some very valuable things you can do in the control center, and we'll be able to talk about how to make those more appropriate for your environment. So, why am I saying that it is a good decision to have gotten an iPhone? Well, the biggest thing is that Apple has decided to make the iPhone last as long as it possibly can. For instance, iOS 14 also runs on the 6S. The 6S was developed and available in 2015, and even a 2015 phone can now take advantage of the latest improvements in the operating system. Additionally, it has done things like improving the glass on the display with the latest release of the iPhone, and that helps trade-in value, etc. Amazing penetration of the latest iOS. The iOS has now got 92% or more of 13 and 14 installed on their iPhones, and that makes it a lot easier to maintain them. Additionally, Android, on the other hand, has a 6.2 per penetration on on Android 10, and the reason for that is that it's so difficult for the developers, the hardware developers, to modify the operating system to run on their devices. And finally, the Apple ecosystem is invaluable for exchanging data between devices, etc. All the screens you see captured on this particular presentation are from iOS 14 to ensure that it's the latest release. Here's a list of some of the changes that have occurred with iOS 14. First of all, right off the top of the list is widgets. We'll be talking about those in length in the next presentation. The app library is the same kind of a deal. We'll talk about those. You'll see a smattering of that in this presentation, but we'll get into depth in a subsequent presentation. We'll also be talking about messages later on in later presentations, so we'll get a little more detail there, as well as the control center. And the control center is always important, so we'll talk about that guy. And finally, we'll talk about health a little bit, as well as settings. Just by definition, we'll have to go into settings to do some things, so we will in fact run into some of the changes that have occurred there. Time to learn about. That's in settings, and settings is represented by that gear guy right there. So click on settings and scroll down a little bit till you get to general. Once you get down to general, click on general, and that will bring you to a whole bunch of other settings, including about. And also notice right under that is software updates. We'll be talking about that later on. So click on about, and there you'll see a bunch of good things like the name of the phone, the fact that what your software version is. In my case, it's 14.2. And if you continue scanning down the about, you'll find out there's a bunch of other information that's pretty handy too, like serial number, for instance. If in fact you didn't realize that 14.2 was the latest release, you could go back and check for software updates, and there it'll tell you what the latest software release is. This particular page has the gestures that are available on the iPhone. The chart on the upper left depicts things like to touch something, like kicking off an application. The next one over to the right is to scroll through your mail or your pictures. The next one over is to show you how that you can actually move diagonal or any other direction just by grabbing something and moving it around. That's typically used to look around on a picture or a photo. Next guy over is pinching, a pinching motion, and that actually shows you leads you to the next one down. That one there is to actually demonstrate that you can size pictures like through a camera or through the actual photo. On the upper right is just gestures in general, looking through your photos, and the fact that if you scroll quickly, then the thing will look like a pinwheel, whereas you scroll slowly, you can do it very carefully. If you place your finger on an application, what will happen is a thing called haptic touch is invoked, and that will cause a menu to pop up. The menu may contain a list of items, or might contain one or two items, but there will definitely be a menu list of things you can do, like whether it's editing the screen or actually to invoke some kind of thing with a camera or some other application that's there available for you to do very quickly. We'll now spend a few moments talking about navigation. Navigation has changed a bit on the previous release, and we'll take a look at that. First of all, let's scroll to the left, and we'll do that until we run out of screens. In the previous release, I had 7 different application screens. Now you'll see that I'm down to 2. When I get to beyond 2, I end up at the application library. Application library is actually something that's really very valuable. And if you can in fact take advantage of it big time, and I'll talk about that in greater detail in the next presentation. Just here's a little sampling of what you'll see when you go through the application library, and it is in fact a library of all your applications. So if you can't find something, which is what I found when you have 7 different pages of them, you just give up and do a search. Now what I'll do is just do a scroll back the opposite direction until we get to a widgets page. Okay, so in this case you'll scroll back 3 pages and you'll get to a page called widgets, and that's been around since previous releases. Now however, you can go through and do an edit, so I just clicked on the edit button there, and at the bottom of the screen, and that will give me the chance to edit what's in my my list of widgets. If you scroll down to the bottom, it'll say customize. If I want to customize, then what I can do now is to actually add and delete from that list of widgets that are automatically implanted in your system. So this again is another topic for a later presentation. Now what we'll do is to go back to the previous screen. Now we'll go to the home screen, and here what I want to do is just to go in any place on the screen and just swipe down, and you'll get this search page. And the search page, what you'll be able to do is to search for any item. So I'm going to type in Broncos, and what you'll see is the search results contain everything from my calendar to my email to web pages, etc., etc. So it's got a whole range of responses, and you can find out, or you can select the one that you prefer and click on it and read the article, or read about the next game, etc. You can also search for apps or just about anything you can imagine. When you're done, click on cancel, and now what we're going to do is to go back and take a look at notifications. Notifications are those magic things that pop up on the screen once in a while. You may or you probably will miss them, but you saw something there that sort of piqued your curiosity. This is a way to get those guys. So from the very top of the screen, scroll down, and you'll start getting a list of all your notifications. Those guys are set up when you install a new application. They'll ask if you want to do notifications, and you can either choose to or not to. I typically will do with the news item or something like that, but try to avoid it. It doesn't add a whole lot. If you find one that you're interested in, just click on it, and away you go. Next, we're going to do a little bit of customization by editing the screen. You can't spend a lot of time doing this. In fact, I did that just before this latest release came out, and cut it back a few pages, etc. But now we're going to do it through and show you how to do about customizing your pages. Okay, let's start out by clicking on a particular application. As I said in the haptic touch, one of the options is to edit the home screen. And what will happen, you'll get up in jiggle mode, is what they call it, and that will show you that you're ready to edit the page. So the first thing we're going to do is to open up this folder, and we're going to take Dark Skies, which is a weather application, and put it on the screen. Okay, put it into the actual page. Then what we're going to do is to take that same thing and move it over to another page. Whoops, too far. We'll go back and drop it onto this page for a second. But let's say I'm pretty happy with having it back in that weather folder, and boom, there it goes back into that weather folder. Okay, so bring it to the edge of the screen, it'll go to the next page. You can't go too far, just bring it back, no big deal. Next thing is show you how to make a folder. A folder can be absolutely invaluable. I've got a photography folder, I've got an exercise folder, a health folder, etc. And so we're going to take an application called Health and drag it and hover it over an application called Notes. And when I do that, it'll combine those two applications into one folder and give it a name. Okay, it shows productivity as a name, and there's logic for why it did that, but we're going to change the name to folder simply by clicking on the X in the name folder name area, and then just retyping. Once we've got that done, we can now actually take that folder and get rid of it. So just grab those guys and put them back to where they belong, because I've got this page pretty much the way I use it. So now we've done folders, and folders, like I say, they can be absolutely invaluable. The dock is represented by those four icons at the very bottom of the screen. Those are valuable because they are the applications that are chosen to be the most popular apps that you're going to be using. In this case, I want to change it so that I'm going to have the system settings down there instead of the health application. In order to do that, all I have to do is get it into edit mode with that little magic clicking on the background for a second, and then I can make the adjustment that I need to make. I can only have 4 in there, so that means in order to once I've got 4, I've got to take one out and put one back. The reason the dock is so valuable is because those are your 4 favorite apps that are available to you no matter what app screen you're on. We'll now be talking about the control center. The control center is accessed by either swiping up from the bottom if you've got a home button, or from the upper right hand corner if you don't. This will give you access to the control center, and away we go. Let's take a look at some of the functions that you have available to you. The airplane represents the fact that if the flight attendant asks you to turn your phone off, if you press that button, that will allow you to effectively turn off your phone and still have access to games and videos and anything else that you have located on your phone. You also have access to the cell. So if you're driving down from Canada and you're crossing the border, you might want to turn that guy off so you don't get any undue charges. The Wi-Fi you also see there, and finally is the Bluetooth. Some of these guys have haptic touch available as well. I just touched in the middle of that 4 squares, and this has popped up, and as you see now I have access to personal hotspot as well. The circular one with a lock in it, that keeps the screen from rotating when you turn it from horizontal to vertical. The next guy over is to the right of that is Do Not Disturb. That's what the car represents as well, Do Not Disturb while driving. Now let's skip to that magnifying glass looking thing. Okay, so we click on that. Now I'm pointing the camera directly at my computer screen. And as you'll see here, as I watch this thing, I can now take this and magnify that, and actually even brighten it up if I wish to. And that becomes an invaluable tool when it comes to looking at fine detail. Like for instance, it's great looking at it's great in a restaurant. I'm sure there's a bunch of you that are all upset because you don't have access to that. Well, let's go figure out how to do that. Again, we go back to settings. That's that gear light thing, right? We scroll down a little bit, and just under general you'll find control center. So now you click on control center, and now you see a list of all the ones you have installed. Those are the minus signs, and all the ones you can install, and those are the plus signs. Now in your plus signs you'll find one called magnifier, and if you go and click on a plus sign, what will happen is it will move magnifier from the uninstalled to the installed, and now you'll have access to magnifier, and just go through there and delete the ones you don't like and retain the ones that you do, and add any that also look interesting to you. Give them a shot. Thank you for joining us, and I hope you join us next time. We'll add a lot more detail about how to use those widgets and how to use the app library, as well as getting into messages.